Okay, take two.
Welcome everyone, it's Deb from Huckleberries, but we're in my sewing room today to do a little demo for you. So this is my space I get to work in. It's smaller than Joanne's, but it's compact and I don't have to go too far to get anywhere. I have ironing here and cutting, sewing, so it's nice to move around, and this actually moves. So I can actually put it beside my sewing table, which is really nice when I quilt. It gives me extra table to have my quilt on top of. All right, so what I've got here today, this is a pattern I did 2020, I guess, it was COVID time. So about 2.5 years ago I finished it, and it's a Gingber. It was a panel of hers, and these were from the matching charm pack that went with it. So on the panel there was the 4 large animals. You can see the larger blocks, and then the smaller ones, there's 8 of those. There's 2 of each animal. And some of them are right and left facing on this one. Okay, and then the blocks to fill in were made from strips of fabric, and I'm going to show you also how to make those blocks. It's such a fun block that you can actually play with and make larger too. Okay, so here is the Merrymaking Panwl. Okay, and that's half of the panel. So we will cut these in half for you at the store and just so charge you for the half of the panel cost instead of doubling that up, because you won't need all of those. We just need the 4, and you're going to get 8 up there and 8 down here. And these are all the same. They don't have a right and left facing. They're all facing forward. So the extra 8 you can use for another project. So the large ones get cut at 10.5 by 8.5, and the smaller ones will get cut at 4 1/4 across and 4.5 this way. You have to really watch your lines, put your ruler on it to make sure that you've got enough clearance, so not to worry about that. And up here you're going to be trimming off. And what I did on these ones, you can see how close to the bottom you are. If you cut your large one first, and then you can see how much leeway you might have on the bottom of the snowman, because if you cut on the line and we sew up here, we're going to lose that part. Okay, so sometimes starting with the bigger ones might be the better way to go, and then you can work with the small ones, and you might have a little extra space on either side. I also had to, when I cut these, I had to add a 1/2 inch by 4.5 inch strip just to bring it up to the 4.5 inches wide in this case, which was not hard, and it's just a Bella Solid. And I do have all this typed up ready for you to go if you pick up the panel and the charm pack. So once I got these trimmed, then I bordered them, and they're 2.5 inch squares, but I used the charm packs, and that's what I'm going to show you how to get these units done up. Instead of doing just single 2.5 inch squares, you can double them up and border them. Okay, and then we will later show you, we add another border onto those once we're done. So what I'll show you first is the Merrymaking charm pack had a lot of these in it. You need at least 55 inch squares, so you can do one charm pack and then supplement it either with coordinating color, or you can just match your own colors because they're in your classic Christmas colors. So you don't need 2 charm packs. You could get away with the 1. I had 2. I've got the extra ones. That will allow me to do the 8 other small blocks, and I can do them either as placemats or as runners or a small quilt. So I will never waste anything. Okay, so this is how we're going to start if we have got charm squares. So I am playing here. I'm going to have a whole nother quilt to do. These were all out of my stash that were leftovers from other projects. So you can see I just pulled colors that would work together. Or you can also go to your, these are 10 inch squares that I either cut from scraps, or this was a layer cake left from a quilt last year that I didn't use. So to get your 5 inch squares, you could cut this in half twice and you've got them. So I kept that with those, depending what I do with it. If I needed more, I know I've got more to go with it. Then I have got 2 squares together, right sides together. And you don't know if you can see, maybe more on the stitching line. Can you see on that one maybe? So it's a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on that side. Okay, then what you can do is on your mat, and that's where I do use my lines, I can line them up and I can stack a couple, and I can go underneath and I can place a couple more, And actually I'll do even up to 4. There's 4 layers of fabric there. I can go more. I use my 60 to go through over 4, and then I will use my 45 to go through 4, but this will go through 6. This is the new one, the heavy one, and I really, really like it. So when I lay these out, why I'm doing this is I'm going to show you, I can speed up the process by stacking. And then I can use either your stripology ruler or your regular rulers. It doesn't matter what you use. Okay, so if I was doing it this way with a regular ruler, I use the stickers here, I don't know if you can see them. The arrow marks the 2.5 inch mark, which makes it easier for you to just make a bunch of 2.5 inch cuts. And that's these stickers here. They're from GE Designs, who does a stripology ruler. This is the Fiesta set, and there's another set that has blue, green, and pink. So because I've lined these up on a line, I can just do them both at the same time. So there's my 2.5 inches, and I can do...
You actually are using your ruler line still, though.
Yeah, I'm using my ruler line still. Yeah, I just did that for a guideline. I never cut using the mat. I just line them up on the mat and then always use my ruler. So firm pressure, and I got through all of those that quickly. Otherwise, I can also, now this is my small stripology ruler, so I can butt it up and I can cut here, or I can take my larger stripology ruler, right? See, this is the handiest little thing I've got there. Okay. And this is where you can see my space here. So I'm going to put my fingers on here and I'm going to slide it and push it till they stop. So it doesn't even matter if I've moved them. Can you see? I can shift them, but they're still staying under here. Then I'll go to my first 2.5 inch cut, which is the first square. And I'm going to go sideways into that first till it clicks. And then I'm going to go up, and I want to put pressure still on my ruler. It's grippy, but you need to hold on. And it's gone through all of those. Now, can you see how I've got space here? I could have had another group here. And so that's what I was doing when I cut them, all my other ones up, is I had probably 4 to each stack. And so I did 16 at a time. So it went really, really quickly. Then what I did is you're going to press these. And why? So here's one set. So this was from a set. So you've got 2 that look like this. But what I did to make sure that I had 2 different pressing, I went to the ironing board and I stacked them like this so that I would press that one in that direction, and I can just use that to help. If any of you have used one of these, it'll just help you see better. So that one would go that way, and this one I would go in that direction. Now, it's not crucial. It was just something, and I'll show you my layout, why I did it. Because I had then you always know you've got those pressed. So I would do that with all my sets. So I've got these all done. I can take those away. And I'll do that ironing later and pairing up. So these sets are already done. Okay, so, and then I keep them together so I know that they are pressed like that. So you can see how they're pressed in that direction. So now I'm going to have to cut these one more time. So I'm going to stack them. Now if I wanted to, I can actually turn them because now they'll nest. So they're looking like the same 2 fabrics on top of each other, but they're going to nest together right there in the middle. So I can just do that, and I can again stack, and whoops, I just told you, you can match the fabrics up now, and then you can nestle those in like that, and it's going to be exactly the same cutting that we just did. So I'm going to make sure I've got those sort of on a line, okay, and I can use either ruler, but I'm going to do the 2.5 inches again. Oops. And there we go. So I can use the stripology, I can use a larger one, exactly the same thing we did on the initial one with the 2.5 inches. So what you're going to do is you're going to have, and then I'm going to flip these all, so that's pressed up Now that one is 2. And the reason I like to do that is when I am pulling these out to go around as borders, I know that they're all pressed in the same direction. Up and oh, look, that got flipped. I can just do that right now. Okay, so then you've got those all done up. These are all my sets that are pressed in the same direction. And then what we're going to do is when you're laying them out, let's just pretend we're framing this guy. On the small ones, we are actually doing 2 on the top. And so I had all of the seams running in one direction just so when you're doing these, you will be able to, you're pressing. If you ended up not having them go that direction, it's fine. You can repress because sometimes you might not like that combination. Meaning, once we get other ones around, like that, see, I might not like those 2, or I might like them, and I might turn that. So the pressing's not super crucial. I just got where I knew that I could be a little pickier. Okay, so if I've got the seam running that way, when I press these, I would press this unit. Okay, so if I've got that going there, I'm going to press away from it. Or I could decide to go the opposite way. If you prefer going that way and press this unit out, then this unit goes the other way. Oh, sorry. Yeah, if we go towards the block, then this one would go out. So that's just basic blocks, sewing for blocks that you would, oopsie, you wouldn't use that one. You've used that already. So this is where you cut them all up so that you've got more options too as you go. Okay, so then my seam is running this way. If I wanted to press this one out, then I would put a block that would run that way. It just saves you from having to worry about repressing. So if you've got them all stacked running one way, then you can do that. So I'll take you over to the board to show you how I did so I've got these all running, okay. Oops, which way are the seams running? I've got, this one won't matter, obviously. It's more this one here that's going to matter. So for the for the small one, you can see top and bottom, there was a set. 2 here, 2 there, 2 there, or 2 there. Or you could do it the other way. You could do one set of 2 and a set of 2. And again, that could make the difference between your color combinations. So you doesn't have to be the same each time. You could do on this one, you might do the top and the bottom first, or you might do the sides first. Then you'll have 2 across as you're sewing. So you're going to sew, I sewed, I think, the sides on first, and then did my tops, joined them together before sewing them on. And that's pressing, doesn't matter which way you press. And then I typically, I think I pressed away from, yeah, I pressed away from, just so that we didn't get the white. If that makes sense, you just won't see the seam underneath the light colored panel. So the one difference on this one, it works evenly. You've got 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. On this guy, we can do even number across the top, but now we have a section where we need 2, 2, and a single one. And you can see I've got a seam unpicked. So that's where you figure out your arrangement, and you can see on this one, I've got it in the middle of those 2 because that's where I didn't want these touching. And in this case, I ran 2 units here together and then a single unit there. So then I'll piece these together and sew it to the side, piece those together, sew it to the side, and the same thing. So there's your finished block. And then the next step on these guys is to have them look like that. Okay, so I've got them all done. They are all framed with the charms, but they've also got a border on it now. And so those ones, and I've got all the measurements written up in the instructions for how wide the strips are. So they're all 2.5 inches, so they all work together. And again, you can go 2 sides first or the top and bottom first. It doesn't matter. I probably said one or the other in the instructions. So then you would press away and then add your last 2 there to get those, and that's one block finished. And you'll get 8 of those, 8 small ones. And again, on the extra ones, you can do the same thing. And you're looking at, that's probably a nice placemat side, and then just add a couple of borders to make it wider, and you're done for placemat. So that would be really sweet, which maybe that's what I'll end up doing. And you could always change out the light color. If placemat being the light whitey cream didn't work for you, you could definitely go a different color there. But I don't mind the white. Things wash, right? So the large ones, the only difference is that there is only, here's my borders, there's if you come to the quilt over here, they all have, and I've already quilted this, you might not see them, there's a top border here, and a side, and a side, and on this one, it's on the bottom, and the two sides. So there's always going to be the sides, but you have to decide whether you want to put the border, for the top or bottom, on the top or bottom, depending on how you want to place this. So I'll have the picture of this quilt attached to the instructions so that you can see what was done if you're wanting to do that the same. So on this guy here, it was on the top, and on this, it was the bottom. If I switched it around, it would just drop this down. So there's no right or wrong there. And that would just be, and again, I've got all the measurements for you typed up. So you would do either top or bottom, like that, and then the two sides. Like that. And then you've got your finished block that's ready to go in once you've got all your other blocks done. So your 4 large blocks will be done like that, where this will switch out top or bottom, and then your small ones will all be the same. They've all got the same amount, top and bottom, and the sides for the borders, because I did all the math, so you didn't have to worry about it. So they are ready to go. Now we have our other blocks to make. You can see what happens. We always have more to finish when we're done here. Okay, a quilt for another day. Alrighty. Whoops, that's okay. So this is block A, and I've got this all on your instructions. There's block A, B, and C. So block A is going to look like, and the reason I left this finished for you, to show you how we chain. So there's the block A's that you will have chained together, but there's a trimming that will be done afterwards. So block A will be a small square, so a 2-inch square, or actually 1.5 inch, sorry, finish, because it's a 2-inch strip we start with. So the middle section is a 2-inch background, a 2-inch color, and a 2-inch strip. And I did this with 7 different colors. So this is my 7th color. The colors that I used for this one were these strip colors here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this is the one I added in. I decided I did those first, and then I need to add another red in. So that's what I've got here. So now what we're doing is I would have all my strip sets like this. They're pressed out, and I did half strip sets, which made I could get. I didn't need to get the full strip sets. It's all in the instructions, so not to worry about that. It's more I just want to show you how these get cut and go together. So you can see what these are, all the ones that are subcuts from this strip set. Okay, so all 2-inch strips. Now this is where the stripology is so wonderful. Now this is my stripology squared, which means it's only up to 12.5 inches, and you can see I've actually got more length on this. So what I would do is, if you have that ruler, now you don't need to use a stripology ruler. First of all, you could actually kind of do a backwards cutting, and you could even fold it in half. And what I would do is, if I folded this in half, I would just make sure they're lined up underneath, and I would set it on here and figure out how many. So if I let's start at 10 here. So 10 to 10 there. Can you see that range there? I know that's going to work with 4 cuts of 2.5 because it's 10 inches. So I wouldn't want to, I could work that way. I could trim there. And then what I would do is turn it. So if I trim there and cut it, I would have an edge where then I would cut, I would put my ruler down. Oops, go this way. So think, this is open here, okay? I would cut it at 10 inches and cut there. And then I would take 2.5 inches off of that measurement, which is 7.5. I would cut, that would give me 2.5 inches. I would back it up to 5, cut again, back it up to 2.5, and I would have 8 done fairly quickly, okay?
Are those 2.5 or 2?
Oh, sorry, 2 inches. Sorry, I was wrong. Thank you. So let's back that up again. We'll do 2 inches, which is still divisible, so it'll be 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Thank you. Our other one's 2.5. Now, for stripology, I would take these and I, on this mat, would stack one. Can you see how this is where I'd use my lines? And this is the Creative Grids mat that was made with GE Designs as well. The other side has more lines and I use both. But this one I like just to have the lines. So just 1/2 inch apart. So I would put a strip set here and then I would stack another one. Let's just pretend this was a full. I can just move up just one line and I would set a couple more on top of each other along that line. So then I know they're all even. And the reason I would take the time to do that is that I would take out my extra large stripology ruler. Now I could mark if I wanted to. Now can you see the lines on that? Okay. So I've got my strip set centered under the lines. Okay, so I know I'm good there. Now I would stack more than one strip set. Like I said, I could go through 3 or 4. If I'm not comfortable with doing another one here, that's fine. You could just work with this because you're still going to be efficient. And then I have to remember 2 inches, not 2.5, because that would really muck you up. So 2, 4, 6. If you wanted to, that's where you put your stickers down. You can see I've got stickers from some other project there and another one that's coming on. Okay, so I go sideways into my ruler. And I would go to 0. And that just is taking off just like the edges, you're salvaging that. So 2, 4. And yeah, sometimes I'll count aloud when I cut. Yeah, you don't want to make mistakes on these, which is easy to do.
12, 14, 16, 18.
And I might get
20.
Oh, and I slipped a bit. I should have straightened up my ruler, but we're good there. So now, close my cutter. I've got just that left over. There's my bin for scraps. And look how many I got done. Now you've got to remember, if I had several strip sets, like 3 or 4, or even 2 on top, and then another set, I would have quadruple this cut at one time. So that's the center for the blocks. Then you have your, I've got it all 2 inch by 5 inches. They're all cut out. Again with my stripology. I did all my cutting with the stripology pre-sewing. And you would sew them like that. So what I do is I sew the, I'll chain. I'll just run through all of the pieces that were like this. So you can see what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have all of these at my sewing machine. And I'm going to sit down with this stack, and I'll go through half of that, obviously, because I need the other side done. And then you're going to press away. And then you're going to leave them all chained together and turn it around and sew on the next one. And you can see how long you can get, right? The chaining is so much faster. All right. But I did do one side, pressed it, and then went back. And what I want to show you is I've got this little, it's called a blade saver, and it's got my old rotary blade inside of it. Okay, there's a screwdriver underneath in here. Pretty clever of them. And then that just magnetically grabs, and that just sets in there. Okay, and you can turn it so that you've got different parts of the blade exposed, which is kind of cool. And then I can actually take the two together and do that. because I've got 2 chains. Can you see that? Where I've got the 2. I didn't even cut them the first time around. That's also time saving. And I would just go like that.
Actually.
So it's really, I used to always use my bobbin winder, but then it would turn it on every so often. And I find this, I don't have to be by my machine. I can do it, I can move this around easier. And I also use the side of my machine, but I'm sure that blade is getting done. So you can see how slick was that. So more to do there. But there's my stack of, they're all unclipped. Okay. Now the next step on these ones is going to be, because they're going to be squared down, I need to, and I don't know if I did all the blocks. That was just my chain. Okay, oh, this was just showing you what it's like before pressing. There's the chain before pressing. So then I go to my ironing board and I lay them all out, and then I'm setting them all, and then I'm pressing them all, and then clipping. So it's all much more efficient to do these blocks. So it doesn't take long that way to do all that chaining and clipping. Okay, so now I just want to make sure. So here's my instructions that you're going to be getting. It says Critters Galore pattern, but I've got highlights for the Merrymaking because it's identical, just a couple little changes. So here was the pictures of the charms and how I did that. So you can refer to the video as well. There was adding the borders on. Obviously the pictures will be different. And then the construction of these blocks. Okay, so it's block A, block B, block C. So now we're trimming these blocks to 4.5 inches. So you can use a square ruler if you want, like this. Okay, so I want to see my 4.5 inches. So this is where I would take my, so obviously I've got a 5-inch square somewhere else too, but I can use this one. So there, I'm putting an arrow for the 4.5. And this cutting will happen on all, okay, so I've got to follow the 4.5. I'm just trying to give myself the corner that I need to have. And you can see I've got other colored stickers on there because that was obviously some other project that needed guidelines. And there's my other 4.5 inches. So what I want to do when I'm using a ruler that's larger than 4.5 is I want to make sure that I'm encompassing the whole, all the fabric, okay? But what's fun with this is where it's fun. I can slide it up and over, and that's what offsets my center, okay? So if I go over here, if I go over there, if I come down. So what you can do is you can do a variety. I could stack a few of these and cut them all the same, which
So you're not worrying about the square being dead center.
Yeah, that's the whole point. You want it actually offset. So I like it to get, so if I was doing it this way, I would, and then I've got a rotating mat I'd probably use, which is beside me over there. Oh. Oops. I'm kind of trying not to get in the way of the camera. And then I would turn it. So I would do a several on this mat under here, which turns. And then I would turn it 180. And then you're going to line up the cut lines now with those 4 arrows. And then I'm going to cut and cut. Okay, and there is my finished block. So I've kind of pushed that center up there. So that's how I would use any square that's larger than 4.5. The other way you can do it is with your small Stripology ruler, and we would work from the center. So the 4.5-inch square is centered in here. And what happens with that one, it's just a little different as far as you're cutting 2 sides at a time. So if I was marking, sorry. Oh, I lost the point on that one. Okay, I'm going to hold it up so I can see the 4.5. So you can see that's the 4.5 there. That point there. There. And then I'm going to see if I can just, oh, maybe I'll do the bottom on the other one, then you can see exactly where my cutting lines would be. So my cutting is going to be on the inside of these 2. Okay, and if I've marked one at the top, I know where I've got to be. So you can kind of see I can move it around. It's hard to see the white line across the top here because of the white fabric underneath, but you get that. So now what I'm going to do though is I'm going to, let's go over this way a bit more and down. So I know it's going to still encompass it, but I'm going to take more away from that top corner in the end. So what I'm going to do is go in and I'm going to cut at the, oops, I don't have it out enough, do I? I went the wrong way. I exposed the left-hand side for the blade. This is what the nice part of this ruler, or this cutter is. There's the center. When I push down, that's for a left-handed cut. And for someone like me, I have to pull it to the right for the right blade to be exposed. And then I'm going to cut. So this is where you don't look down at these numbers, which I almost did. Your numbers actually now are on the center of that block. And I can use my Stripology squared large one to do this as well. So now I've taken off two sides as opposed to a top and a side. And so I just rotate it once, which is a quarter turn, not 180 degrees. And now I'm going to line up under the 4.5 line here and the 4.5 line there. This is also really good for fussy cutting. You can put these rulers on top of blocks. Okay, so now I just have to worry about being underneath those, and then you can see how I can slide it to cut. So I can center it, or I can go over here, and I'll do one cut there, and one cut there. And those arrows were super helpful because it drew my eye up there as opposed to looking down at these bottom numbers, which don't work. And there is, now can you see how the squares are a little different in there? And it doesn't matter, you can see how I can turn this. So that's how that one is done, and the other ones are actually all done in the same process. So that was block A. So we have an actual 1.5 inch finished center. Block B, we're gonna have a larger center. So this time we've got a strip set that's a 2.5 inch bordered by two 2 inch. So now we're cutting the strip sets. This is my 2.5 inch cutting. We're cutting them 2.5 inches wide instead. So what happens is we're going to get more color on this block. So I'm going to use my large one because I can get across those easier. Running out of space. Okay. So I'm going to line it up, and because I'm just doing the one, now you can see how my sewing wasn't perfect, but I'm just looking at some of the wave happening here, and that could be my pressing, and that could be my sewing. Okay, so again, 0, and this time we're 2.5. So if you have this ruler, the 2.5 inches are actually the squares. So, but I'm a math person, so I do 5, 7.5 in my head, and I can't help but do it when I cut. So it's not a bad thing to, in your head, have those numbers. And then it's a double check. And pretty quick and slick to get those cut. So now we've got all those done. Then you're bordering that with the 2 inch, but they're 5.5 inch this time. So they're a longer set that goes with it. And exactly the same process, same chaining, same one on one side and then one on the other. Okay, now the center is larger on those. So when we've got those done, there's the chaining again. Just with all of the, that's what the second side put on. Okay, so you can see how many you can get at one time. And then I would press all those, and then I would cut them all with the handy dandy cutter. But I find it easier to press when they're all joined, because then I don't have to pick them up. I can actually drag them across my space behind me and do them that way. So those are the centers, again, that I've got to do, and that's what the block will look like. And it's exactly the same cutting. So I won't repeat the cutting because you already have seen me do that. But if I just put the ruler on there, whoops, I used that square one, sorry. How many rulers do I have?
So it's 4.5 too.
It's 4.5 too, but you're gonna get way more color, right? So you can see as I'm dragging this across And I can actually, I'll just cut one and then you can see, because I'm really offsetting it. So again, just encompassing it under the, so more gets cut off on this one. And as you're doing it, if you want to be straight, what you can do is just make sure you've got, and I didn't do that super straight, you can check to make sure you've got lines that are even with the center of the block. I'm not too bad there. Not that you couldn't tilt it if you wanted to though, which just would make it look a little, well. Okay, so there's that block and there's that first one. Okay, and that's, if you look in the quilt, then you start going, that's what gives it the real cool look, right? So this, you can see the difference in those ones. And do you notice the third block? The third block is the one that has the color around it. So it's done exactly the same way as a block, but what I did this time, I didn't need as many of those. So in the pattern, I had you cut for these center pieces. This is just a 6-inch piece. So a 2 inches by 6 inches, 2 inches by 6 inches, that I sewed onto a 2-inch by 6-inch background. And I just did that, I cut those, I didn't do the long strip sets like before. That's my strip set, okay? So what I do with these ones is I can stack them. Like that. And since I've got 2 more like that, oh, that's my block. I could just put them, and again, I just use lines on the mat to center things like that. And I can just use, I could use any of my rulers. I could do my regular ruler. I just like my Stripology because it grabs the edge of the fabric. And I went with the longer one, even though I could have gone, sorry, it's the shorter ruler. And again, this is where I pick up my Stripology squared when I know I've only got a couple of cuts to make, because my large ruler is a larger, more cumbersome to pick up. So this, I alternate using them all the time. So again, I push down, I slide in, and you can see they moved and they're snug. So now I need to go at 2 inches. So when you're going over those seams, you can hear it, but I'm making clean cuts right through, and that was a few. And how fast was that? I just love these rulers. And I've got all those ready to go. Now what I do though, is I've got to now find the matching. So these get pre-cut ahead of time, and you're just sewing on the matching one to it. And that will look just like, oops, this block here, our A block. It's just reversed, okay? And then the cutting is exactly the same. You're going to square that up to the 4.5, and then your placement is up to you. So I've got, I'll show you. I do have a picture there, and you can kind of see it. I've broken it down. You can see how I have pieced everything together. And all the arrows indicate the pressing, so it all works out for you. So I laid it all out as pleasing as you want to have it. So I really just tried to, it's just, you don't have as many as these with the colored border on them, so then you're just moving those around more than anything. But I did lay this whole quilt out first and move things around, but I broke it up into those rows. So you could see like this was a row laid out, okay? And then I worked from there. But I do have it all down, because you can see this isn't a row, so I had to do this so that it met up. I could splice them in, and so you can see on this one how we've done that. I've broken that up into the small panel one here, and then 2 rows of the squares. So you don't have to worry about how to do that. It's all there for you. Okay, and these blocks would be lots of fun. Oh, you could do a quilt out of these blocks, just the blocks that I just showed now. You could also take the same idea and make it larger. So start with a 3-inch in the middle and add whatever sides. You just have to cut the subcuts the same width as that and add borders, And then you get to cut a larger square as opposed to 4.5. If you want to make 6.5-inch blocks, and just increase everything and play with it. Okay. Well, miss everybody. Happy to see that everyone who is getting into the store, and hope you have fun with this video.
And that behind you might be our next video.
Oh, okay.
The pumpkins.
This is a project. Yeah, pumpkins. Big pumpkins. Yes, and I've been playing with the pattern, so I've found that the templates aren't necessary, which is awesome. So this is a good way. This is how I stack I've got a large 20.5-inch ruler, which works really good. You can also use cookie sheets. But I've got 2 blocks stacked. There's another block under here, because this is done in reverse. So then I stack them so I can just take them to my sewing machine and sew.
Nice.
So, a couple of tips for you there. Okay. Have a great day. It's September 10th and it is 26 degrees at least outside, so it's exciting. So enjoy the weather, folks.